Good afternoon. This session is being transmitted live also. So good morning, good night from wherever you are. Bonsoir, bonjour. Cette session est transmise aussi en direct à travers le monde. Où que vous soyez, nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue à partir du siège des Nations Unies. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to call to order the 2022 edition of the Africa Open for Business Summit. And it's a great pleasure to have you. My name is Djibril DIALLO. I'm President and Chief Executive Officer of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, an organization headquartered in New York with 501c3 status, which has got consultative status with several organizations of the United Nations, and which is running a special project in support of the United Nations to popularize the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa and in the diaspora in over 80 countries. I would like to extend a warm thank you to His Excellency, Ambassador Cheikh Niang, permanent representative of Senegal to the United Nations. As you know, Senegal is the current chair of the African Union. Ambassador Cheikh Niang, in spite of his busy schedule, worked tirelessly to make sure that we convene at the headquarters of the United Nations in this time of the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. So I'd like to extend a warm thank you and a warm welcome to Ambassador Cheikh Niang. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And we're very, very fortunate to have our moderator. We thought that since the African Union is the body that represents all of us, Africa and the diaspora, who better than the African Union to be the overall moderator of this session. So it's my pleasure to introduce Her Excellency Hilda Suka Mafudze, Ambassador of the African Union to the United States of America. And our chair of the board is Honorable Constance Newman, to the right of the ambassador, Cheikh Niang. She is a former Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, former head of USAID for Africa, among other assignments. She still finds time to give us, to make at our disposal her experience as chair of the board. So we have our chair of the board of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, Ms. Constance Newman, who is here. And to my far left, a young lady who has de facto become a global champion for the campaign to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. It is an idea whose time has come. That's Sharon Okubo Kumbabach. So I would like to express my gratitude to the International Trade Center, represented today by Ms. Aïssatou Diallo, for sponsoring simultaneous translation services. Donc pour les francophones, il y a une traduction simultanée que vous pouvez suivre dans l'un des deux canaux. The theme of today's summit is economic empowerment of women through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This theme falls within the framework of the campaign launched by the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. Women's rights are human rights. As you know, in the game of football, called soccer in the United States, when the referee gives a red card to a player, what happens? That player is out of the field. So we want to make sure that discrimination and violence against women and girls is a serious infraction against the rules, as in the games of football. And when a player gets that kind of card, he or she is permanently dismissed from the field. The Red Card campaign envisions any form of gender-based discrimination or violence or serious infraction of the rules of society deserving of a red card. I would like to draw your attention to the wooden statue over there. It depicts a young girl with arms upraised. And as you can see, a bird hovering with outspread wings above her head. This statue, which was a gift of Denmark, symbolizes humankind and hope. That is why it's so appropriate for us to hold this session of Africa Open for Business in this Trusteeship Council chamber. I would like also to mention that it is women and girls of today that carry the hope of humankind. This is true when these chambers were built, and it should be true today. Next year marks 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 75 years ago, the governments of the world met in Paris, and they declared that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Last week, I was at a meeting of African Women Leaders Network. At that meeting, one of my former senior colleagues, whom is very known to many of you, the Honorable Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Nobel Prize winner and former president of Liberia, noted that we have come a long way in having equal representation in leadership positions. However, she says, if we continue at the current pace, it will take at least, imagine, 100 years before women and girls will enjoy the equal right promised to them. Another 100 years. My sisters and brothers, if we have to wait another 100 years, it means that the vast majority of those alive today, many of our mothers, many of our sisters, many of our daughters, many of our granddaughters, many of our great-granddaughters will not have the opportunity to fully enjoy the equality, the dignity, and the rights promised to them in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They should not have to wait any longer. We need to hope, we need to push, we need to fight and aim for the choices, for the voices, for the leadership of women and girls to be heard today. For our mothers, for our sisters, for our daughters, for our granddaughters, for our great-granddaughters to enjoy true freedom and equality today. One of the pillars of the African Continental Free Trade Area, most international trade instruments, is something that is called the most favored nation. This principle is enshrined in Article 5 of the International Agreement establishing the area, as well as a number of protocols. The most favored nation principle says that every member state of the African Continental Free Trade Area must be treated no less favorably than another member of the area. We are here, meeting in this room, and connected worldwide to make sure that women and girls must be treated no less favorably than men and boys in the implementation of the African Free Trade Area everywhere else in the world. In this context, with the permission of our ambassadors here present, with the permission of the chair of the executive board of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, I would like politely to ask you to stand up, please. I would like you to join hands, elbows or fists or spirit, so that we form a wall here to make sure that the idea of fighting gender-based violence and harmful practices is an idea whose time has come. I'd like you to please close your eyes in a moment of reflection on this, so that individually and collectively we make a pledge to do so here and now. Thank you. You may be seated.